So let me do quick introductions of our panelists. And again, thank you so much for your willingness to provide your observations. Again, we'll look to keep it to 3 to 4 minutes, please. That will help us also have some free time for our participants. So to my immediate left, I have Mr. Mukundan, Chief Executive Officer, Tata Chemicals Limited. Thank you. Next, General Rajendra Singh, Chief Executive Officer of the DLF Foundation. Next, Stefan Helming, Country Director for GIZ. Next, Cecilia Scharp, Senior Advisor, Water and Environment, UNICEF, Water Thematic Consultation Co-Lead. And finally, Jason Morrison, Program Director, Pacific Institute, and the Technical Director for the CEO Water Mandate. So again, 3 to 4 minutes, your observations, greatly appreciated, and if I can start here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting to watch the panelists and jot down key points of what I think my views are. These necessarily represent a view of pragmatism in my view, because we can't run away from the fact that we operate in a political, social context within this country. We may aspire for a lot of things, but we have to operate within that context. So let me just start with first by saying that this is a congregation of converted, and lots more we need to bring into this room. And we should work with missionary zeal, not with the negative energy, but with a lot of love and a lot of reaching out to the people who may not know enough. I think that's the first principle with which we need to work. Secondly, I think big companies and listed companies have a role, and that role is of being a role model and a catalyst. We can't think of this as a burden. We have to think of this as a responsibility. So essentially, I think there's a difference between think of this as an economic burden, but I think we have to move into a more motivated category of saying that we have been given a wonderful responsibility by the society of being role model and catalyst. The second issue is that I think many people spoke about polluter pays, user pays, but there's a big elephant sitting in this room. Not all users will pay. We know that. So I think we need to move from just the models of economic contract to social contracts. They work better in the field. We have seen social contracts have even more powerful mechanism in this country than economic contracts. So just don't limit yourself to economic contracts. And government join us. I think government is a powerful force. We've seen it work in many, many parts, but let's not berate the government. I'm not standing here for the government. Don't mistake me for being a government spokesperson. Dr. Solekar spoke very eloquently about various points. He comes from an esteemed institute, which I'm also alumnus of. So obviously, this is all funded by government. We are all products of thinking which government of India has done. And I think there's a lot of good which we need to partner with government and engage with government. I think maybe next time we should reach out to them much earlier. That's a failing on our side rather than complaining about government. I think we failed. We need to reach out. So I like to put the context differently. Let me just then say about our own efforts. I think Tata Chemicals, we have a flourishing business which started because of water. We owe it to water. We have a branded salt business, consumer business, which we sell salt. It started as a make-up water plant. We were in a remote place in Gujarat, and I'm going to take a minute longer because it sort of helps you what are the business opportunities. We didn't have water in that arid zone, so we had to sort of use the sea water, and the byproduct was salt. We started selling it. Today our water is free and we make money out of the salt. So I think there are immense business opportunities. We also have water purifier business, Swatch, which is clearly a business opportunity which has come out of the fact that there is need for greater access for pure water in this country. Other than that, I think our efforts at the community level have been more at the watershed management level in Gujarat, where we have done tremendous work in terms of salinity ingress management, as well as making sure the water table rises. And here the government has been a tremendous partner. Most of the programs have been financed by government of Gujarat and the national government. We have been the delivery partners for them, and there are tremendous, I think if you just work with the mechanisms which are available, there's a great impact which we can create. One of the things I really believe is that the overall issue that we all are jointly responsible. We all owe it to the society that we take water as a commitment, and we have a responsible use of the inputs. I think it's a commitment we ought to make. One of the things which is lacking in this country is transparency of data, which we need to insist upon. in the annual reports, at least to the large companies first. What do they do with water? I think that will bring in a greater amount of ownership of water. Today we do speak about energy, but I think we need to bring water in the same category as energy. Lastly, I want to say that we are embarking on a partnership with IFC, which is to look at watershed development in the area close to our company's operations. We are looking to impact 50,000 farmers. And really, if you want to spread, and one of the things which I heard is that there is a water, energy, food nexus, and we can't run away from that whole nexus. If you want to impact the farming community, we don't have to impact 100 million farmers. We really need to touch 10 million farmers who will then spread the whole practice through word of mouth. And if we can impact 50,000 farmers, if you take top 200 companies, if each one takes ownership of 50,000 farmers, you can impact 10 million farmers. So it's something which is doable. It is something which corporates can take ownership of. But I think we need to sell, we need to reach out, we need to sort of make this as a core part of their future agenda. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about my views.
Thank you very much. General.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, let me thank the organizers for having given me this opportunity to come here and attend such a wonderful program. This program is wonderful for more than one reason. One is that it is dealing with an issue which is probably one of the most important issues facing our planet today. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I do not know as to how many of you are available that or are aware that only 3% of the total water in the world is the water fit enough for drinking. Out of this, 2% is in the form of glaciers. 1% is therefore available to us. Out of this, the drinking water which is available to us is 0.007%. And 25% of this, we are using it to flush our toilets. Are we doing the right things? The kind of water that we are using, India is actually a blessed country. It has adequate amount of water. It has adequate amount of water for our needs, but it doesn't have adequate amount of water for our greed. And what we are doing today, ladies and gentlemen, compounded by the fact that a large-scale urbanization has taken place, is the fact that our cities are consuming water in a manner as if there is no tomorrow. Totally unthinkable. I think we owe it to our future generation that we look after our water. And a lot of good thoughts have come about during this meet here today. And I am indeed very happy to say that I am going back a much more wiser man. Thanks to some brilliant ideas which have come, that firstly we need to put water on a pedestal that it invites the attention of all stakeholders. Government, the most important stakeholder, whose record in water conservation is not bad. People, the next important stakeholders, I think their record needs a lot of improvement. The amount of water that we are wasting today needs a tremendous amount of change. The third stakeholders are our corporates, our industries, and our other people who use water. I think there is a lot which can still be done, like Dr. Solkar was mentioning. I think a lot has already been done as far as big industries are concerned. There is a lot which still needs to be done about controlling the small-scale industries. I don't know how is that going to be done, but I think we need to be much more stricter, we need to be much more firmer in implementation of our laws and in ensuring that everybody follows the rules that we have set for ourselves. The third point, which is extremely important, is the fact that what do we put in our Millennium Development Goals? I was very fortunate to be invited in the consultation we recently held in Delhi about the revision of these goals and the goals that we are going to have post-2015. by the UNDP, also in consultation with the CII. And let me mention, I think there is a lot which needs to be done. If you want to find goals from every little issue, you can find 20 goals. You can't have goals for wash. You can't have goals for waste management. You cannot have goals for every small little thing. You have decided on 8 or 9 things. I think we must concentrate on 8 or 9 most important things which are important for humanity tomorrow. And I think those things, in the order of priority, they are is first, the core values which one of the gentlemen here talked about, is about preservation of your natural resources. And in that water comes, it has a place, important place. But preservation of natural resources, those should form 1 or 2 goals. Next thing which comes to is improvement in the quality of life of human beings. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have had the privilege of heading a United Nations mission in Ethiopia and Eritrea, and it is seen to be believed that for a nation or for nations who are so full of natural resources, for nations who have so much of rainfall which is coming to them, half of their population suffers because of drought, because of bad water management. For the kind of lifestyle which half of Africa lives in is seen to be believed. I think we need to put about 4 or 5 of those goals in that. That is poverty elevation, bringing people above the poverty line. As far as our third goals are concerned, are the social evils which needs to be eradicated, like your women empowerment and others. Water has an important role to play. But every small issue of the water, I'm afraid, ladies and gentlemen, cannot be put in the next development goals. Otherwise, we will be losing focus on other things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Stefan, please.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much also for inviting me to speak here. It's very good to me come back to the water scene with Josefina here 10, 12 years ago. We were doing this big conference in Bonn, 130 governments, all the private sector, business, stakeholders from civil society, and it's good to be back into this. As a GIZ in India, we were working on a lot of the topics. We have been for 10, 15 years that have been discussed today. Industrial, urban water management, watersheds. We've also been working with the Ministry of Corporate Affairs on CSR guidelines. And I can tell you, when you are talking government, of course, it's very good to work with government. We work with government all the time. We also work with the private sector. We work with the civil society. It is a thing that can be done. And I'm sure it will happen. And the role of government, of course, is paramount for the water sector. In India, sometimes government can be part of the problem. That is not my assessment. That comes from the Planning Commission. Government is a facilitator. Government is a provider. Government is a funding agency. And there are problems. But without government, there's no solution. So that is very important. My message is to the private sector, because we have seen the scene was laid out very well. I think this morning you asked me to summarize what I've heard. What we've heard from Terry, from WWF, from Vicky was very clear. There is a threat for business from water scarcity, from water pollution. It's a water security issue. Bastian made that very clear. I like the presentations on the water footprint and on the disclosure project. What I feel also from the background of our work here is CSR is not enough. There's a huge transformation needed and I'm talking about business. I'm not talking now about agriculture. I'm talking of business, all branches of business. We have seen today the very good work done by the Tatas, done by our colleagues from the food and beverage sectors, which have a special relationship to water. But that is not the tip of the iceberg, but the tip of the iceberg. When I look at India, we have huge corporate sector. We have one part of the corporate sector that trades internationally, has a lot of pressure from consumers, from buyers, and does a lot of reforms. There are other sectors which have less of that. We have sectors which are close to international competition, so what's happening there? Where's the pressure to perform? We have what they call PSU, the public sector undertakings, huge companies. How do they, and this is maybe not private sector, but it's business. We shouldn't exclude that. And then look at SMEs, hundreds of thousands, 300, 400,000 small and medium enterprises. A lot of these are much less modern. They are, sometimes I feel they're not even 20th century, they're 19th century. Business inherited from father to son, not much innovation, same old technology, very bad energy management, very bad water management, very bad management of all the other inputs and components. But this is where the low-hanging fruits are. I believe, and Nyati was saying this, fruits are hanging very low in the business. If somebody cares to look at it, I feel sometimes business managers are doing all kinds of things, very important things, but are they looking enough at the process? So the solution, I think, is in this process, small things, one improvement by the other, thinking globally, yes, thinking holistically, but doing things, very small improvements. I've talked to my colleague when we came here. He said, who's doing a lot of this work, 100 stories he can tell where payback was 2 to 3 months of small interventions, small changes that have really yielded great success in water management, but the same is true for energy management, all these others. Somebody was saying Ohio principle, own house in order. And I think that is a very good way forward. I think it can be done with government. Indeed, there needs to be more cooperation between government, between the industrial stakeholders and the civil society. It is possible, and I would love as a GIZ to be part of that in the future.
Stefan, thank you. Cecilia.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do some reflections on what we have heard today. I come from the perspective of the process of Post-2015 and as co-leading of the Thematic Consultation. So I will try to link what I have seen or heard in the Thematic Consultation with what I have heard today. If we have some convergence in the messages on the challenges and priorities, which I think we need to have a sound basis for formulating a new goals and targets on water, if that is what we need. If I also have time, I will say a few words on where I see businesses can assist in developing this framework and this agenda. So the thematic consultation of water is still ongoing, and therefore what I'm saying is just reflections. There is no decisions made so far. So it is an ongoing process, and I'd also like to reiterate that whatever comes out from this consultation today and these discussions we are having today will find its way into the bigger picture. So whatever we talk about will be part of the final outcome statement from the thematic consultation. It will find its way, hopefully, into the high-level panel's report and the Secretary General's report, etc., etc. So it is an important moment with the messages that we create today. If I look at an overall general level, what I think has come out from the thematic consultation is that we have repeatedly heard that water is a determining factor for the 3 pillars of sustainable development. We are particularly emphasizing the cross-cutting nature of water, and water is important for reaching also other goals and developments in health, in education, but in environment, in economic development, and agriculture, etc., etc. So, and there is also a lot of intrinsic linkages in the wider water agenda, and I think that's why we have concluded that we do need a water goal, a standalone water goal. And this water goal should try to address the 3 different subtopics which we have to discuss today as sub-targets. So in the consultation, and I also think that we have reiterated this today, most of us has reiterated, yes, we need a global goal on water, and I think that's a very good thing, so we have something to take away and advocate for in the future process. Then we have, of course, tried to collect views on the different subtopics. Where are we? Where are the key challenges and priorities for the future in WASH, in water resources management and wastewater management and water quality? A reflection I can make is that in wash sector, we had an MDG. We are more advanced. We know very well where our shortcomings are, what are the challenges for the future, and we have also been able, I think, to formulate for ourselves a vision where we want to go. We know that we have an unfinished agenda when it comes to sanitation, which is huge. We know that human rights are basic, and we need to address inequalities and reach out to poor and discriminated people if we want to reach universality. We know that sustainability and safety are issues in water supply. So we have been able, through an expert process, to formulate ourselves already, and we have a proposed target for water, which is universal access to safe and sustainable water, sanitation and hygiene, reaching out to everyone without discrimination. And I think this is a very strong case. When it comes to water resources management and wastewater water quality, it's clear that it's more difficult. It's a wider agenda, it's a broader agenda, and we don't have any experiences to lean on. So it's also clear that when it comes to the challenges, it's a little bit diverse. But I can see from the discussions today that there is a convergence in the discussions, and I think that the themes that has come up during the thematic consultation has also been reiterated today. And that is, of course, that water demand is likely to increase, and we are going to have a growing water scarcity. We have got ample examples today from what is happening here in India. We also know that extreme weather events will happen. Floods and droughts is already affecting our infrastructure, our food production, etc., etc. We are not resilient and cannot manage these yet, and we have to build in these processes. Water quality is deteriorating, and we need to be sure that we are providing safe water. That means we need to look after wastewater, we need to improve land use and waste management, etc., etc. And I think we have got a very good example from Tata still today that it's possible to do a lot of things, but globally it's a huge challenge. And lastly, I think the issue of water management and water governance, we all know it's weak. We actually had a goal for water resources management and for effective water use already in the Johannesburg Plan of Implementation, but we have not been able to deliver on that. But we still know that these are important tools and measures we need to work on to have a safe water future. So we need to be better to manage our water resources, and we need to have better water governance. And I think what we heard this morning of the weak role of the government here in India, that is really impacting the possibility for professional water management, is a compelling argument for including water resources management. So my quick analysis is that yes, we have a converging agenda. We still need to focus and work on what is the goal we want, and what are the targets and indicators that we can have, which are measurable, aspirational, and can drive the agenda forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very well done. Jason.
Consistently across every session today, we've heard that there should be a goal around water. And I think that's not entirely surprising, since we're the water people at our respective organizations, but I think that's more a view that's more broadly felt, and it's a good starting point. What is not clear is, for water, what is the goal, the overarching umbrella idea, and then what are the targets that underpin it, and then what are the activities that you implement in order to achieve that? And I think we haven't organized our conversation around that, but I think that is where this conversation needs to go to in order to progress to a development framework post-2015. A number of people have talked about water security, and in fact, out of the Breivik consultation process that Philippe talked about, water security was recognized as perhaps an overarching concept of what you might work toward. And what we heard from Bas in the morning, that in essence, water security is the business case and why the private sector would actually care about the water issue and getting aligned with the policy objectives. But of course, water security is a broad notion, and it's not entirely clear what falls in. In fact, many people could place many things within that broader concept. I would suggest that if you think about sustainable development for the next 25 years, and you don't consider the simple idea that long-term demand has to come in line with renewable supply. It's a fundamental idea behind sustainability. And so when you want to try to achieve that balance, the question then becomes, how do you approach decisions around who gets the water within that, on the demand side of that, and how do you make sure that the supply is managed on the other side of the equation? And that's where I think you get into the whole area of water governance and decision making, and the idea that companies that are already participating in governance structures are one voice in this broader discussion around what the priorities for that region are. And as you heard from Martin Ginster in the morning, that actually getting engaged in that process is a very important way for the company to understand the context that it's operating, the risks that it's facing around water, and it also has the opportunity to allow the company to work with other stakeholders toward responding to those challenges for the region. And so this idea of participatory watershed level structures allows to get around to many of the things that we heard today about the challenges of moving this forward. If you're focusing at the watershed level, you have a better chance of identifying where the shared risk is and where the shared interest in responding to it is. And as you also are able to set goals and share rewards. As Mike referred to the idea of common goals, shared rewards, and when Martin referred to the idea of you got to have something in it for everybody in order for it to be able to work. At the local level, you also have the best chance to be able to get over the silo challenge that we hear, the silos, the institutional silos, because once you get it down to a particular geography, those institutions are able to understand how they need to work together to get to it. So there's this idea that participatory governance and decision-making is the best way to ultimately bring people together toward a shared outcome. And if you do this in an inclusive and participatory way, I would suggest you would have the strongest chance of addressing the needs of marginalized and vulnerable communities that have not been in the equation historically, or the idea of the ecological needs for a region, which of course is part of the demand side of the equation. It's not just the demand of humans, but the demand of the freshwater systems.
Jason, thank you. So here's what I'd like to do. I have a request, Gavin, to you and Josefina. I would like to run this session about 10 minutes over. Is that all right with the both of you? That's fine. And let me say, if anyone needs to leave at the scheduled time for closure, please feel free to do that. And panelists, I'd like to hold you here for just a few minutes while we get some observations from the floor, and then maybe some quick final observations from you, and we'll move to Josefina and Gavin. So what I'd like to do is invite observations from the floor. We will only have a limited amount of time to do that. So my screen, for those of you that would raise your hand to make an observation, is that you can do that in approximately 1 minute. So we can move through a few. But all of you have been patient. You've been good listeners all day. This is an opportunity to provide input to both the panelists here, but as well to others. So would anyone like to jump into the conversation at this point? Is that a hand in the back? Or did someone just say goodbye to someone and and has inadvertently volunteered themselves? Okay. Going once? Going twice? Oh, Ruth? Okay, and great. So, Ruth, go ahead, and then Nick will head back in your direction. Ruth, would you mind standing up? Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make the observation that, we've heard a lot of different perspectives, and I think that's a critical piece of this, that, water is inherently complex, and it is inherently cross-cutting. And so as we look on how to go into the future, we need to grab hold of that in some way. We need to find systems that help us understand how water is being used, how it's being transported from one place to another through the production chain, how it's creating value, where it's creating value, where it's creating environmental issues and where it isn't. And how to think of that in a global sense as well as a local sense. So that's a mouthful, but that's the challenge that we have going forward if we really are going to meet this idea of sustainable development.
Ruth, thank you. So, Peter, Nick, to your right there. And Nick, if you'd introduce yourself since you haven't been on the panel.
Nick Hepworth, Water Witness International. We've heard some brilliant stuff today, really good ideas and good examples. And I'm going to go slightly off target on the panel's goal, but a bit of a challenging question. Lots of the discussion seems to be similar to the discussions we had 4 years ago in Istanbul at the Seawater Mandate meeting that I attended there. How are we making progress as a group within the Seawater Mandate? Or how is the Seawater Mandate making progress? And how are we measuring that progress?
Nick, you're posing a question. Do you have thoughts on your question? And the only reason why here is the ground rule was observations, not questions. And I expect that may have been a form of rhetorical question backed by some thoughts that you have. So would you share?
I've landed myself in it here, haven't I? I wanted to fill the silence of the when you comment. Well, I think we need to, certainly in terms of learning about what works and what doesn't in this space. And I think the Water Action Hub is a step forward in terms of thinking about how this pans out in real water basins on the ground. What needs to come from that is some adaptive learning, which links to the need for transparency and accountability. But I don't see that piece is there yet.
Mm-hmm. Good, thank you. All right, time for one more. Yes, right here, Peter, please. And if you could stand and please introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, Gurpreet Singh. I am from Glaxo with client GSK. To summarize, first of all, fantastic day. I think we really enjoyed, and we observed the complexity of the subject, and along with the complexity of the subject, how important this is for to industry, corporate, NGOs, everyone, and ultimately to the humankind, the importance of the subject. We discussed about challenge which we have uniquely out in this country, India, which was very good. Only thing which I was just wondering was that along with sharing the issues which we have in the government engagement onward to everything which we talked about in India, whether during these 2-3 days we will have some knowledge sharing on how the developed countries in which water is being managed well, how they are tackling this. I mean, how the government is taking ownership, how the corporates are going for, how the corporates are coming forward, and how the general implies and the human race is what I want to say, engaged in this journey. So that would be my thought to leave with you. That in case in the next 2 days we can cover that off a little bit.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Well, I'm looking at my watch. I don't see any other hands jumping up. And panelists, what I actually would like to do is to just turn to my left for some final observations and then move to the next wrap-up if we can. All right, so please.
So I'm going to help you with a very short observation, not a long one, and I think Jason said it very, very succinctly. I think he sort of picked up everything and he sort of ended on a nice high note. I think the business case for corporates is fundamentally water security. You cannot run away from this fundamental fact. Most of us are not nomads. We are fixed in some sites, and these are large sites, and there are communities around it, and no longer can you get a site. Firstly, you'll be fortunate if you get a fertile site. You're not going to get a site which has got access to land, water. So I think you need to work your way through water as an issue. And secondly, where you're already present where water is an issue, you need to work with the communities around. So I think this whole concept of water security and managing the watershed as a concept, I think must be something which big companies need to embrace, and that should form the cornerstone of everything else we discussed. I have complete agreement with what Cecilia observed with respect to the fundamentals that we need to define goals in a more sharper way going forward, while the WASH goals were very clear because they were defined very clearly. The other areas we need to work our way through that, but I think with the commitment which we have, we'll get there. And Stefan, I think you very clearly highlighted the complexity within this country in terms of execution, but I think that's a challenge in any developing country because the governance mechanisms are still evolving, and when it's an evolutionary phase, it is an issue. And I must thank Rajendra Singh for highlighting the importance of water. I think it sort of brought back why we are here together. I think the centrality is water is important. So I leave with the final thought of what Jason said. Look at this as a water security issue. As climate change begins to take center stage, which it will, as temperatures begin to rise, which it will, as water becomes more scarce, which it will, this will become a security issue, not a day-to-day issue. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. Thank you all.